Maria Chen stood in the corner of the Grand Hotel lobby. Her hands were shaking just a little bit. She tried to hide them by folding them together in front of her simple blue dress. The dress was not fancy. It was the nicest one she owned, but it looked plain compared to all the beautiful gowns and expensive suits in the room. The lobby was full of people. Rich people. Important people. They were all here for a big charity event. The kind of event where tickets cost more money than Maria made in a whole month. Maybe 2 months. She had cleaned this lobby 1,000 times. Maybe more. She knew every corner, every marble tile, every crystal light hanging from the ceiling. But tonight she was not here to clean. Maria was 67 years old. Her hair was gray and pulled back in a simple bun. Her face had wrinkles from years of hard work and worry. Her hands were rough and dry. These were the hands of someone who had scrubbed floors, washed dishes, and cleaned bathrooms for most of her life. They were not soft and smooth like the hands of the wealthy women in the room. She looked at the grand piano sitting in the center of the lobby. It was beautiful, a shiny black Steinway piano that probably cost more than she would earn in her entire lifetime. The hotel kept it there to look fancy. Sometimes they hired professional piano players to perform for special events. But tonight, the piano player they hired had canceled at the last minute. Something about being sick, or maybe it was a family emergency. Maria was not sure. All she knew was that the event coordinator, a stressed young woman named Jessica, had asked her to play instead. It had happened 3 days ago. Maria was cleaning the lobby early in the morning before the guests woke up. She thought she was alone. The piano was there, silent and waiting. Maria had stopped her work for just a moment. She had walked over to it. She had lifted the cover and looked at the keys. Black and white, perfectly arranged, beautiful. She had reached out one finger and pressed a single key. Just one. The sound filled the empty lobby. It was like hearing an old friend's voice after many years. She had not heard Jessica walk up behind her. "Do you play?" Jessica had asked. Maria had jumped. She pulled her hand back quickly like she had touched something hot. "I'm sorry," she said. "I should not touch. I was just looking." No, it's okay," Jessica said. She looked tired. She always looked tired during big events. "But really, can you play piano?" Maria hesitated. How could she answer that question? Yes, no, it was complicated. It had been so long. So many years. A whole lifetime ago in a different world she had played. But that was not something she talked about. That was not something anyone here knew. "A little bit," Maria finally said. Long time ago, Jessica's eyes lit up. "Really? Like, could you play background music? Simple stuff? Nothing crazy?" Maria should have said no. She should have made an excuse. But something inside her, something she had buried deep for decades, whispered yes. Before she could stop herself, she nodded. Now here she was, 3 days later, standing in a room full of strangers who had no idea who she was. They saw an old cleaning lady in a cheap dress. They probably wondered why she was here, why she was walking toward the piano. Some of them were already starting to whisper. Maria could hear bits of their conversations as she walked slowly across the lobby. Who is that? Is she supposed to be here? Where's the real pianist? Maybe she works here? The word stung a little, but Maria was used to being invisible. She had been invisible for most of her life in America. People looked past her, through her. They did not see her as a real person with a real story. They saw a cleaning lady, someone who emptied their trash and made their beds, someone whose name they did not need to know. She reached the piano. The bench was a little too low. Her back hurt these days, and sitting at the wrong height made it worse. She adjusted the bench, lifting it up slowly. Her hands were still shaking. She could feel hundreds of eyes on her back. Some people had stopped talking completely. They were watching her with curiosity. Or maybe it was pity, or confusion. Maria sat down on the bench. It felt strange, foreign and familiar at the same time. She had not sat at a real piano in years. Sometimes, late at night in her small apartment, she would press her fingers on the kitchen table and pretend. She would hear the music in her head, her fingers moving in the air above the table like she was really playing. Her daughter had caught her doing this once and asked if she was okay. Maria had laughed it off. "Just exercising my fingers," she had said. "They get stiff." But this was not pretending. This was real. A real piano, real keys, real people listening. She placed her rough, worn hands on the smooth ivory keys. They felt cool under her fingertips. She closed her eyes for just a second. She could feel her heart beating fast in her chest. Too fast. She took a deep breath. Then another. Behind her, the conversation started again. People had already lost interest. They went back to talking about their businesses, their vacations, their stock portfolios. The soft sound of champagne glasses clinking filled the air. Someone laughed loudly at a joke. The piano was just supposed to be background music. Pretty sounds that nobody really listened to. Just noise to fill the space while rich people talked about rich people things. That was what they expected. Simple music. Easy music. Boring music that would not distract from their important conversations. Maria opened her eyes. She looked down at the keys. In her mind, she could hear her old teacher's voice, Professor Wang. He had been so kind to her when she was young, so patient. Music is not about the notes, he used to say. Music is about the feeling, the story, what you want to say when words are not enough. What did she want to say tonight? After 50 years of silence, after 50 years of hiding, after 50 years of pretending that this part of her did not exist, her fingers found their position. She would start with something simple like Jessica asked, a nocturne by Chopin, something soft and gentle. She knew it by heart even after all these years. Some things you never forget. Some things live in your bones, in your blood, in your soul. She pressed the first key, then the next, then the next. The notes came out quietly, carefully, like someone whispering a secret they are afraid to share. Her fingers felt stiff at first. They did not move as smoothly as they used to. Decades of cleaning had left them rough and sometimes painful. Arthritis had started to settle into her knuckles. They ached on cold days. Today was a cold day. But as she played, something began to happen. Her fingers started to remember. They started to wake up. Muscle memory is a powerful thing. It lives deeper than conscious thought. Her hands knew what to do, even if her mind was full of doubt and fear. The nocturne was beautiful. Sad and sweet at the same time. It was the kind of music that made you think about things you had lost, people you missed, dreams that never came true. Maria poured herself into each note. She did not think about the people in the room. She did not think about her aching hands or her nervous heart. She just played, but then something unexpected happened, something she had not planned. As she reached the middle of the nocturne, her fingers began to move differently, faster, stronger. Without deciding to, without thinking about it, she began to transition into something else, something much bigger, much harder, much more dangerous. Rachmaninoff, Piano Concerto No. 2. It was one of the most difficult pieces in all of classical music. Even professional concert pianists spent months preparing to perform it. It required incredible technical skill, perfect timing, enormous emotional depth and physical strength. It was not background music. It was not simple. It was not what Jessica had asked for, but Maria could not stop herself. It was like 50 years of silence suddenly broke open inside her. All the music she had kept locked away came flooding out. Her hands flew across the keys. They moved faster and faster, playing runs and chords that seemed impossible for a 67-year-old cleaning lady with arthritis. The sound filled the entire lobby. It was not soft background music anymore. It was powerful. It was demanding. It commanded attention. One by one, the conversation stopped. Someone had been telling a story about a business deal. He stopped mid-sentence, his mouth hanging open. A woman had been laughing at something funny. Her laugh died in her throat. Another man had been lifting a glass of champagne to his lips. His hand froze in midair. Every single person in that lobby turned to look at Maria. Really look at her. Not past her. Not through her. At her. The music swelled and crashed like ocean waves. It was angry and sad and beautiful and desperate all at once. It told a story without words. A story of loss and survival, of dreams destroyed and spirit unbroken, of a life lived in shadows waiting for one moment of light. Maria's eyes were closed now. Tears ran down her weathered cheeks, but she did not notice. She was not in the hotel lobby anymore. She was somewhere else, some other time. She was 14 years old again, playing for her teacher in Shanghai. She was feeling her father's proud hand on her shoulder. She was hearing her mother's voice saying, "My daughter is going to be famous one day." But she was also remembering the day the Red Guards came to their house, the day they smashed her piano, the day they called her family enemies of the people, the day everything ended. She was remembering the years in the factory, The years of silence. The years of pretending she was someone else. Someone ordinary, someone forgettable. All of it poured into the music. Every memory, every pain, every moment of hidden beauty that she had carried alone in her heart. The piano sang under her hands. It cried, it screamed, it whispered, it celebrated, it mourned, and everyone in that lobby stood frozen listening. Some of them had tears in their eyes, though they could not explain why. They did not know Maria's story. They did not know where she came from or what she had survived. But somehow they could feel it. They could feel it in every note. A young woman in an expensive red dress put her hand over her mouth. An older man in a tuxedo blinked rapidly, trying not to cry. A couple who had been arguing quietly in the corner stopped and reached for each other's hands. The music connected them all. It reached past their expensive clothes and fancy jewelry and important jobs. It touched something deeper, something human, something real. Maria played the final section of the concerto. Her fingers were hurting now. Her back was aching. Her heart was pounding so hard she thought it might burst. But she did not stop. She could not stop. This was not just a performance. This was a confession, a resurrection, a reclaiming of a self she had lost so long ago. The final chords came crashing down, loud and powerful and absolute. The sound echoed through the lobby, bouncing off the marble floors and high ceilings. It seemed to last forever. And then silence. Complete, total silence. Maria sat at the piano, her hands still on the keys, her chest rising and falling with heavy breaths. She was exhausted. She felt like she had just run a marathon, or climbed a mountain, or fought a war. Slowly, she opened her eyes. She was afraid to turn around. Afraid to see the faces of all those people. What had she done? She was supposed to play simple background music. She was supposed to be invisible, forgettable, safe. Instead, she had exposed herself. She had revealed a secret she had kept hidden for half a century. She had shown them who she really was underneath the uniform and the rough hands and the gray hair. She waited for anger, or confusion, or worse, pity. But what came instead was something she never expected. From somewhere in the back of the room, someone started to clap. Just one person. Slow claps that rang out in the silence. Then another person joined. Then another. Then suddenly everyone was clapping. The sound grew louder and louder until it filled the entire space. People were standing up, all of them. A standing ovation for her, for Maria Chen, the cleaning lady who was not really just a cleaning lady after all. Maria finally turned around on the piano bench. Her face was wet with tears. Her hands were shaking again, but this time it was not from fear. She looked out at all those faces. They were not looking through her anymore. They were seeing her, really seeing her for the first time. And in that moment, something inside Maria began to heal. Something that had been broken for 50 years started to mend. She was not invisible anymore. She was not forgotten. She was here. She was real. She was alive. The applause continued, growing even louder. Some people were wiping their eyes. Some were shaking their heads in disbelief. Some were pulling out their phones, though they had missed the performance and could only capture the aftermath. Maria did not know it yet, but her life was about to change forever. This was not just a moment. This was not just one night. This was the beginning of something she had thought was impossible. But for now, she just sat there at the piano, overwhelmed and exhausted and more alive than she had felt in decades. The girl she used to be and the woman she had become were finally, after all these years, in the same place at the same time. And for the first time since she was 14 years old, Maria Chen felt W. The applause was still ringing in Maria's ears as she tried to catch her breath. She felt dizzy. Her whole body was shaking. What had she just done? For 50 years, she had kept this secret buried deep inside. She had been so careful, so quiet. And now, in just 15 minutes, she had let it all pour out in front of hundreds of strangers. But as she sat there on the piano bench trying to understand what was happening, her mind began to drift. She could not help it. The music had unlocked something in her memory, something she had worked very hard to keep locked away. Now it was flooding back, whether she wanted it to or not. Shanghai, 1964. Maria was 14 years old. Her name back then was Lin Mei-ling. Everyone called her Mei-Mei. Little beautiful one. She was small for her age, with long black hair that her mother braided every morning before school. Her fingers were already long and elegant, perfect for piano. She had started playing when she was 5. Her father, Lin Wei, was a professor of literature at Fudan University. He was a gentleman who loved books and music and art. Her mother, Zhang Lan, had been a music teacher before she got married. They were not rich, but they were comfortable, educated, respected in their community. The piano in their home was her mother's most precious possession. It was an old upright piano, not fancy, but it had a beautiful tone. Her mother had inherited it from her own mother. Every day after school, little Mei Mei would sit at that piano and practice. At first it was just simple songs, children's melodies, basic scales. But her mother noticed something special. Mei Mei did not just play the notes. She felt them. She understood them. Even as a small child, she could make the piano sing with emotion. It was not normal. It was not something that could be taught. It was a gift. By the time Mei Mei was 8, her mother took her to see Professor Wang at the Shanghai Conservatory of Music. Professor Wang was famous. He had studied in Europe before the revolution. He had played in concert halls all over the world. He rarely took on new students, especially children. But when he heard Mei Mei play, something changed in his eyes. He sat very still, listening. When she finished, he was quiet for a long time. Then he turned to her mother and said, "I will teach her. This child has something rare, something precious. We must nurture it." For the next 6 years, Mei Mei studied with Professor Wang. She practiced 4 hours every day, sometimes more. Her fingers flew over the keys. She learned Mozart and Beethoven and Chopin and Liszt. She learned pieces that most adult pianists could not play, and she did not just learn them. She mastered them. She made them her own. Professor Wang told her parents, "In my whole career, I have never seen talent like this. Your daughter could be one of the greatest pianists China has ever produced, maybe one of the greatest in the world." At 14, Mei Mei auditioned for the Central Conservatory of Music in Beijing. It was the most prestigious music school in all of China. Only the very best students were accepted. The competition was fierce. Hundreds of talented young musicians tried to get in. Most failed. Mei Mei played Rachmaninoff's Piano Concerto No. 2 for her audition, the same piece she had just played in the hotel lobby 50 years later. She was nervous that day in Beijing. Her hands had shaken. But once she started playing, everything else disappeared. There was only the music. The judges sat in silence when she finished. Then one of them, an old master who had studied in Russia, stood up. He walked over to her. He had tears in his eyes. He took her hand and said, "You are accepted. Welcome to the conservatory. We are honored to have you." Mei Mei's parents were so proud. Her father cried when they got the letter of acceptance. Her mother hugged her tight and whispered, "All our dreams for you are coming true, my daughter." That summer of 1964 was the happiest time of Mei Mei's life. She was going to Beijing in the fall. She was going to study with the best teachers. She was going to become a concert pianist. She was going to travel the world and play in the greatest halls. Her future was bright and clear and certain, but then everything changed. In 1966, Chairman Mao launched the Cultural Revolution. He said China needed to destroy the four olds: old customs, old culture, old habits, and old ideas. He said the country needed to be purified, to be remade. He encouraged young people to rise up against their teachers, their parents, anyone who represented the old ways. Groups of young people called Red Guards began to go through the cities. They wore red armbands. They carried little red books with quotes from Chairman Mao. They looked for people to punish. Intellectuals, teachers, artists, anyone who was educated or cultured or different. Mei Mei's family was exactly the kind of family the Red Guards hated. Her father was a professor, an intellectual. He taught literature, which the Red Guards said was bourgeois and Western. Her mother had been a music teacher. Music was also considered Western corruption. And their daughter was studying piano, the most Western instrument of all. Mei Mei remembered the day they came. It was a hot afternoon in August. She was 16 years old. She had just finished practicing. Her mother was in the kitchen making dumplings for dinner. Her father was in his study reading. Then they heard the shouting. Loud voices outside their building. Footsteps running up the stairs. Hard pounding on their door. Fists, not knuckles. Bang, 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 bang. Her father opened the door. There were maybe 10 or 12 of them. Young people, teenagers, some even younger than Mei Mei. Their faces were twisted with anger and excitement. They pushed past her father and came into the apartment. "You are enemies of the people," one of them shouted. He was a boy, maybe 17. Mei recognized him. He had been a student of her father's, not a good student. He had failed his exams. "You spread Western poison," a girl yelled. She was pointing at the books on the shelves. Her father's precious books that he had collected over years. Literature from all over the world. They started pulling the books down, throwing them on the floor, tearing pages out, laughing. Mei's mother came running from the kitchen. "Please," she said. "Please stop. We have done nothing wrong." One of the red guards pushed her. She fell. Mei screamed and ran to help her mother. Her father started toward them, but 2 red guards grabbed his arms and held him back. Then one of them saw the piano. The old upright piano that had been in their family for generations. The piano where Mei had learned to play, where she had spent thousands of hours creating beauty. "Look," the boy said. He was smiling. "Western instrument." "Western poison." "No," Mei whispered. "Please no," but they did not listen. They did not care. 4 of them went to the piano. They lifted it. They struggled with it, but they managed to carry it to the window. Their apartment was on the 3rd floor. Mei's mother was crying. "Please, please, that was my mother's piano, please." "Exactly," one of the girls said. "Old things. We must destroy all old things." They pushed the piano out the window. Mei heard it fall. She heard the crash when it hit the courtyard below. The sound of wood splintering, strings snapping, keys scattering. She ran to the window and looked down. Her piano was destroyed, completely destroyed, pieces everywhere. The neighbors who had gathered outside were silent. Some looked scared. Some looked away. No one tried to help. No one dared. The Red Guards took her father away that day. They said he needed to be re-educated. They marched him down the street with a tall paper hat on his head. They made him wear a sign around his neck that said, "Counter-Revolutionary Intellectual." People watched. Some people she knew, neighbors, friends, no one helped. Everyone was too afraid. Mei and her mother were left alone in the destroyed apartment. Books everywhere. Furniture broken. The window still open where the piano had been pushed out. That night they went down to the courtyard. They tried to gather pieces of the piano. Maybe they could fix it. Maybe it was not all gone, but it was hopeless. The piano was destroyed beyond repair. Mei held a piece of the keyboard in her hands, several keys still attached. She pressed one. No sound came out. It was just wood and ivory, dead and silent. Her mother held her while she cried. "I'm sorry, Mei," she whispered. "I'm so sorry." The next day, more Red Guards came. They told Mei her acceptance to the conservatory was canceled. She was no longer welcome. She was the daughter of a counter-revolutionary. She was tainted, corrupted. "You will go to the countryside," they told her. "You will learn from the peasants. You will do real work, honest work. You will be re-educated." But first there was a public criticism session. These happened all over China during the Cultural Revolution. People were forced to stand in front of crowds while others shouted accusations at them. Sometimes they were beaten, sometimes worse. Mei had to stand on a platform in the public square. Hundreds of people came to watch. The Red Guards shouted questions at her, made her confess to crimes she had not committed. "You studied Western music," they yelled. "You played Western instruments. You thought you were better than everyone else. You thought you were special. Confess your crimes against the people." She was 16 years old and terrified. She said what they wanted her to say. "I was wrong. I am guilty. I will reform myself. I will serve the people." They made her stand there for hours. People threw things at her. Rotten vegetables, stones, insults. Some of the people throwing things were people she knew. Children she had gone to school with. Adults who had been friends of her parents. Afterward, they sent her to a rural village far from Shanghai. She worked in the rice fields from sunrise to sunset. Her hands, her precious hands that had been trained to play the most beautiful music in the world, now pulled weeds and planted rice and shoveled dirt. At night, she slept in a crowded dormitory with other young people who had been sent away from the cities. She was not allowed to go home. She was not allowed to play piano. She was not even allowed to talk about music. Sometimes, when everyone was asleep, she would lie in her bed and move her fingers in the air above her blanket, pretending to play, hearing the music only in her head. It was the only way she could keep it alive. The only way she could hold on to that part of herself. She did this for almost 10 years. 10 years of her life, the years when she should have been studying and performing and becoming the pianist she was meant to be, were spent in fields and factories. Her youth was taken from her. Her dreams were destroyed, just like that piano falling from the window. Her father died in 1974. He never came back from the re-education camp. She was not allowed to go to his funeral. She learned about his death in a letter from her mother. He had been worked to exhaustion, malnourished, broken. He died of pneumonia, but really, he died of a broken heart and a broken spirit. Her mother survived, but she was never the same. The light went out of her eyes. She became a different person, quiet and afraid. She never talked about the old days. She never mentioned music. In 1976, Chairman Mao died. The Cultural Revolution slowly began to end. People who had been sent away started to come back to the cities. Mei Mei returned to Shanghai. She was 26 years old. She had lost 10 years. 10 years that could never be recovered. She tried once to play piano again. Her mother had gotten a job at a school, and there was an old piano in the music room. Mei Mei went there one evening when the school was empty. She sat at the piano. She put her hands on the keys, but she could not play. Her fingers had forgotten. Or maybe her heart had forgotten. Or maybe it hurt too much. The music she heard in her head could not come out through her hands anymore. It was like there was a wall between what she felt and what she could do. She tried for an hour and then she gave up. She closed the piano lid and walked away. She never tried again. Not for years and years. Life had to continue somehow. Mei Mei needed to survive. China was opening up and people were talking about opportunities in other countries. America, Canada, Australia, places where you could start over. In 1978, Mei Mei met a man named David Chen. He was Chinese-American visiting Shanghai to find his relatives. He was kind, ordinary. He worked in a restaurant in Los Angeles. He did not know anything about music or art or literature, but he was safe, stable. He offered her a way out. They got married quickly. It was not a love marriage, not at first. It was a survival marriage. David sponsored her to come to America. In 1979, at 29 years old, Mei Mei left China. She left her mother. She left her destroyed dreams. She left everything behind and got on a plane to Los Angeles. She started calling herself Maria. It was easier, more American. Her life in China felt like it belonged to a different person anyway. Lin Mei-ling, the piano prodigy, was dead. Maria Chen, the immigrant trying to survive in a new country, was who she needed to be now. David was not a bad husband. He was not cruel, but he was distant. They had 2 children, a son and a daughter. David worked long hours at the restaurant. Maria worked wherever she could find jobs, cleaning houses, doing laundry, taking care of other people's children. They did not talk much. David did not ask about her past. She did not tell him. He never knew that his quiet, plain wife had once been considered one of the most talented pianists in China. He never knew that she had studied with famous teachers, that she had been accepted to the most prestigious conservatory, that she could have been famous. Why would she tell him? That person did not exist anymore. That life was over. Better to forget. Better to focus on surviving, on raising her children, on paying bills and putting food on the table. In 1995, David died of a heart attack. He was only 48. Maria was 45. Her children were teenagers. She needed a steady job with benefits. She applied to work at the Grand Harbor Hotel. They hired her to clean rooms. For 30 years, she worked at that hotel. Every day she cleaned. She changed sheets. She scrubbed toilets. She emptied trash cans. She was invisible. Guests walked past her in hallways without seeing her. They left messes without thinking about who would clean them up. But the hotel had that beautiful piano in the lobby. Sometimes when Maria cleaned early in the morning before anyone was awake, she would stop and look at it. Just look, she never touched it. She was afraid. Afraid it would hurt. Afraid she would remember too much. Afraid she would feel that loss all over again. Until that one morning 3 days ago when she could not resist anymore. When she pressed just one key. When Jessica heard her. When everything changed. Now, sitting at that piano with hundreds of people clapping, Maria understood that she could not hide anymore. She could not be invisible anymore. That part of her that she thought was dead was not dead at all. It had just been sleeping, waiting for 50 years to wake up. She did not know what would happen next. She did not know how her life was about to change. But she knew with absolute certainty that she could not go back to pretending. She could not go back to being invisible. The music was alive inside her again, and this time she was not going to let it die. The applause was starting to fade. People were slowly sitting back down, still staring at Maria with wonder on their faces. She stood up from the piano bench carefully. Her legs felt weak. She had to hold on to the piano for a moment to steady herself. Her heart was still racing. Her hands were trembling. Jessica, the event coordinator, rushed over to her. The young woman's eyes were red. She had been crying. "Maria," she whispered. "Maria, that was. I don't even have words. That was the most beautiful thing I've ever heard. Where did you? How did you?" But Maria could not answer. She felt overwhelmed. Too many emotions at once. Relief, fear, joy, grief. Everything was mixing together inside her chest, making it hard to breathe. She needed to get away. She needed space, air. "I'm sorry," Maria said quietly. I need a moment. Please excuse me." She started walking toward the back of the lobby, toward the employee hallway. But people stopped her. They reached out to shake her hand, to touch her arm, to say something, anything. "That was incredible. You made me cry. Where did you learn to play like that? Are you a professional pianist?" Maria kept her head down. She smiled and nodded and tried to be polite, but she kept moving. She needed to escape. Finally, she pushed through a door marked staff only and found herself in the quiet hallway where the employee lockers were. She leaned against the wall and closed her eyes. Her whole body was shaking now. Not just her hands. Everything. She felt like she might fall apart. For 50 years, she had held herself together by keeping that old life separate from this new one, by never talking about it, by never letting anyone see. And now, in 15 minutes, she had torn down all those walls. What had she done? What was going to happen now? She heard footsteps in the hallway. Heavy, quick footsteps. A man's voice called out something in Mandarin. "Wait, please wait." Maria opened her eyes. A man was walking toward her. He was older, maybe in his 60s, with gray hair and glasses. He was wearing an expensive tuxedo. He looked like he belonged at the charity event with all the other wealthy people. But his face was strange. He looked shocked, almost scared. "Are you?" he said in Mandarin, coming closer. "Excuse me, but are you? Is your name Lin Mei Ling?" Maria felt like the floor dropped out from under her. No one had called her that name in decades, not since she left China, not since she became Maria Chen. How did this stranger know her real name? I don't," she started to say, but her voice came out as a whisper. The man stopped a few feet away from her. He was staring at her face like he was trying to solve a puzzle. "Lin Mei Ling from Shanghai? You studied with Professor Wang? You were accepted to the Central Conservatory in 1964? Maria's legs gave out. She slid down the wall until she was sitting on the floor. Her hands covered her face. How did he know? How could he possibly know these things? The man knelt down beside her, not caring that his expensive suit was touching the dirty hallway floor. "My God," he said softly. "It really is you? We thought you were dead. Everyone thought you were dead." "Who are you?" Maria asked. Her voice was shaking. "How do you know about me?" "My name is Robert Chen," the man said. "Dr. Robert Chen. I teach at Juilliard now, but I was born in Beijing. In the 1970s, I was a student at the Beijing Conservatory. I was young, just starting, but everyone there talked about you. The legend of Lin Mei Ling, the greatest talent the conservatory had ever seen. The girl who was accepted, but never came. The girl who disappeared during the Cultural Revolution." Maria looked up at him. Tears were running down her face. "You knew about me?" Everyone knew about you, Robert said. The teachers talked about you for years. They said you were going to be China's answer to the great masters. They said you had a gift that comes along once in a generation, maybe once in a century, and then you vanished. No one knew what happened to you. There were rumors. Some said you had died in the countryside. Some said you had gone mad. Some said, your hands were destroyed and you could never play again. They weren't completely wrong, Maria whispered. That girl did die. Everything she was supposed to be died. Robert shook his head. No, I just heard you play. That girl is very much alive. They sat there in the hallway for a few minutes, not speaking. Maria was trying to process what was happening. Someone knew about her past. Someone remembered. For so many years she had felt like that part of her life was erased. Like it never really happened. Like maybe she had imagined it all. But here was proof. Here was a man who knew her name, who knew her teacher, who knew her story. It was real. It had all been real. What happened to you? Robert asked gently. After you didn't come to the conservatory? Maria took a deep breath. And then, for the first time in 50 years, she told someone the whole story. She told him about the Red Guards, about the piano being thrown from the window, about her father being taken away, about the 10 years in the countryside, about giving up, about coming to America, about becoming Maria Chen and leaving Lin Mei Ling behind. Robert listened to everything. When she finished, he was crying too. I'm so sorry, he said. So many people suffered during those years. So many lives destroyed. So much talent lost. But why? Maria asked. Why did you think I was dead? Because you disappeared completely, Robert explained. Some people came back after the Cultural Revolution ended. Some people started playing again, teaching again. But you never resurfaced. Professor Wang tried to find you. He asked everyone. He sent letters. But you were gone. Eventually, people assumed the worst. Professor Wang, Maria whispered. Just hearing his name made her chest hurt. Her kind teacher. The man who had believed in her. Is he? He passed away in 1989, Robert said quietly. But he never forgot about you. I studied with him for 2 years before he retired. He kept a photo on his piano, a young girl sitting at a piano. He said it was his greatest student, the one who got away. I always wondered who that girl was. Now I know. They sat in silence again. Maria felt strange. For so long she had buried her past. She had convinced herself it did not matter anymore, that it was over. But hearing Robert talk about Professor Wang, hearing that her teacher had remembered her, had kept her photo, had looked for her, it meant something. It meant that part of her life had mattered, that it was not all wasted. What you played tonight, Robert said. The Rachmaninoff. That was what you played for your audition, wasn't it? Maria nodded. Yes. How did you know? Because it's in the records. The conservatory kept records of all the auditions. I saw them once when I was doing research. Your audition was marked as exceptional, the highest score ever given, and the piece was listed, Piano Concerto No. 2. I played it that day because it was the hardest thing I knew, Maria said. I wanted to show them everything I could do. I wanted to prove I deserved to be there. And you did deserve it, Robert said firmly. You still do. No, Maria said, shaking her head. That was a lifetime ago. I'm 67 years old. My hands hurt. I haven't really played in decades. I'm a hotel cleaning lady. That's all I am now. That's not all you are, Robert said. I just heard you play. Everyone in that lobby just heard you play. Do you know what you did? You made a room full of strangers cry. You stopped them in their tracks. That is not something a normal person can do. That is not something even a good pianist can do. That is something only a great artist can do. Maria did not know what to say. She had never thought of herself as an artist. Not anymore. That word belonged to someone else. Someone from the past. Listen to me, Robert said. He took her rough, worn hands in his smooth ones. What happened to you was a tragedy. What the Cultural Revolution took from you, from so many people, was inexcusable. But you're still here, you're still alive, and the music is still alive inside you. I heard it, everyone heard it. But I don't know if I can do it again, Maria said. Tonight was. I don't know what happened. It just came out. I couldn't control it. But I don't know if I could do it again on purpose. Then we'll find out, Robert said. Will you let me help you? Help me how? I want to record you playing, Robert said. I want to document this. Your story needs to be told. People need to know what happened. And I want to see if we can get you performing again. Really performing. Not just background music at hotel events. Maria laughed, but it came out as a sob. I can't perform. Look at me, I'm old. I'm nobody. You are not nobody, Robert said strongly. You are Lin Mei Ling. You are the student Professor Wang never stopped looking for. You are the talent that China lost and America never knew it had. And tonight you just played one of the most difficult pieces in classical music, like it was written for you. Maria wanted to believe him, but it seemed impossible. Too big, too scary. For 50 years she had been small, invisible, safe. How could she suddenly be something else? I need time, she said. I need to think. Of course, Robert said. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a business card. This is my information. My phone number, my email, everything. Please, when you're ready, contact me. Even if it's just to talk. You don't have to do anything you don't want to do. But please don't disappear again. Please don't let the world lose you twice. Maria took the card. Her hands were still shaking. She looked at it. Dr. Robert Chen, professor of piano, Juilliard School. There was an address in New York, a phone number, an email. Thank you, she whispered. Robert stood up and helped her to her feet. No, thank you, he said. Thank you for tonight. Thank you for that performance. Thank you for still being here. You have no idea what it means. He hugged her briefly and then walked back toward the lobby. Maria stood alone in the hallway holding his business card. She could hear the sounds of the charity event continuing. Music playing from speakers now since the piano was silent. People talking and laughing. Life going on, but everything felt different. The world felt different. Maria felt different. She went to her locker and got her purse. She looked at herself in the small mirror hanging inside the locker door. Same face, same gray hair, same wrinkles, but something in her eyes was different. They looked more alive, more awake. She left the hotel through the employee entrance. She did not want to walk through the lobby again. She did not want more people stopping her, talking to her, asking questions. She needed to be alone. Outside, the night air was cold. She pulled her thin jacket tighter around herself. Her hands were in her pockets, and she felt Robert's business card there. She wrapped her fingers around it. The bus ride home took 40 minutes. Maria sat by the window and watched the city go by. Los Angeles at night. So many lights, so many people, so many lives happening all at once. She had lived here for almost 50 years, but sometimes it still felt foreign. Sometimes she still felt like a stranger. Her apartment was small. Just one bedroom in an old building. Not nice, but not terrible. It was all she could afford. Her children had offered to help her move somewhere better, somewhere safer, but she always said no. She did not want to be a burden. She did not want to need anything from anyone. She unlocked her door and went inside. The apartment was quiet, empty, it always was. She lived alone. Had lived alone since David died 30 years ago. Her children visited sometimes, but they had their own lives. Her son lived in San Francisco. Her daughter lived in San Diego. They called on holidays, sent cards on her birthday. They were good kids. But they were busy. Maria took off her shoes and her jacket. She put her purse on the small table by the door. She turned on one lamp. The light was soft and yellow. She looked around her apartment, at her old furniture, at her small kitchen, at her life. For 50 years this had been enough. Or at least she had convinced herself it was enough. She had survived. She had raised her children. She had paid her bills. She had made it work. What else could she have done? But now, after tonight, everything felt different. The apartment felt smaller, emptier, sadder, like she was seeing it for the first time, like she was seeing herself for the first time. She walked to her kitchen table and sat down. The same table where she sometimes moved her fingers at night, pretending to play. She looked at her hands. They were old hands. rough and dry and wrinkled. The nails were short and uneven. These were not the hands of a pianist. These were the hands of a cleaning lady. But these hands had just played Rachmaninoff. These hands had made a room full of people cry. These hands still remembered even after all these years. Even after everything, Maria put her hands flat on the table. She closed her eyes. She heard the music in her head. The Rachmaninoff, the Chopin, the Mozart, all of it was still there. It had always been there. She had just been too afraid to listen. She thought about Professor Wang, about how he had kept her photo, how he had never forgotten her, how he had tried to find her. She had spent so many years thinking that everything she lost did not matter, that it was all gone, that no one cared but someone had cared. Her teacher had cared. He had remembered her until the day he died, and now Robert Chen was here. Offering her something, offering her a chance. To what, she was not sure, but it was something. It was not nothing. Maria opened her eyes. She looked at the business card on the table. She picked it up and held it. Could she really do this? Could she really try again? At 67 years old? After 50 years of silence? It seemed crazy, impossible, foolish. But then again, playing piano tonight had seemed impossible too. And she had done it. She had done it without thinking, without planning, without being ready. She had just done it. Maybe that was how you had to do impossible things. Not by being ready, not by having a plan, but by just doing it, by taking one step, then another, then another. Maria did not know what would happen next. She did not know if anything would come from tonight. Maybe it was just one moment, one strange, beautiful, unexpected moment. Maybe tomorrow everything would go back to normal, or maybe not. Maybe this was the beginning of something. Maybe this was a door opening. Maybe this was a chance to find that part of herself she thought was dead. Maybe it was not too late after all. She set the business card back on the table. She would keep it. She would think about it. She would not make any decisions tonight. Tonight she was too tired, too emotional, too confused, but she would not throw it away. She would not forget. She would not let this moment disappear like so many other moments in her life had disappeared. For tonight, that was enough. She had played. She had been seen. She had been remembered. After 50 years of being invisible, someone had finally looked at her and seen who she really was. Maria stood up from the table. She walked to her bedroom. She changed into her nightgown. She got into bed. The sheets were clean. She always kept clean sheets. Even if no one saw them but her, she turned off the light. She lay in the darkness. She could hear the sounds of the city outside her window. Cars passing. Sirens in the distance. Someone's television playing too loud. And underneath all of that, in the quiet space inside her own mind, she could hear music. The music that had never really gone away. The music that had been waiting. The music that was still alive. Maria closed her eyes. And for the first time in 50 years, she fell asleep with a feeling that was not quite hope, but close to it. Something warmer than resignation. Something brighter than acceptance. Something that felt like maybe, just maybe, it was not over yet. Maria woke up to the sound of her phone ringing. It was loud and harsh in the quiet of her bedroom. She opened her eyes and looked at the clock on her nightstand. 7 in the morning. Who would call her this early? She reached for her phone. The screen showed a number she did not recognize. She almost let it go to voicemail. She did not like talking to strangers. But something made her answer. "Hello?" she said, her voice still rough from sleep. "Maria Chen?" a woman's voice asked. Young, energetic. Too energetic for 7 in the morning. "Yes, this is Maria. Hi, my name is Jennifer Park. I'm a reporter with the Los Angeles Times. I'm calling about your piano performance last night at the Grand Harbor Hotel. I'd love to talk to you about it. Would you be willing to do an interview?" Maria sat up in bed. Her heart started beating faster. How did you get my number?" "The event coordinator at the hotel gave it to me," Jennifer said. "Someone at the charity gala last night recorded your performance on their phone. They posted it online, Maria. The video has over 2 million views already. It's everywhere. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. Everyone is talking about it. People are calling you the mystery pianist. They're trying to figure out who you are. 2 million views." Maria felt dizzy. She could not process what that meant. 2 million people had watched her play? How was that possible? I don't understand, Maria said. The video is incredible, Jennifer continued. You can see the whole thing. The way everyone stops talking. The way they all turn to watch you. And the playing itself is just... It's unbelievable. People are saying it's one of the most moving performances they've ever seen. So I want to tell your story. Who are you? Where did you learn to play like that? Why were you working at a hotel charity event? I can't, Maria said quickly. I'm sorry. I can't do an interview. I don't want attention. This is all a mistake. Please, Jennifer said. People want to know about you. Your story deserves to be told. Just think about it, okay? Here's my number. Call me if you change your mind. Maria wrote down the number, though she had no intention of calling. She hung up the phone and sat on the edge of her bed, trying to breathe. 2 million views. She could not imagine it. She had never even been on social media. She did not have Facebook or Twitter or any of those things. She did not know how any of it worked. Her phone rang again. Another unknown number. This time she did not answer. It went to voicemail. Then it rang again. Another number. Another voicemail. Then again. And again Maria turned her phone off. Her hands were shaking. What was happening? How did everything change so fast? Last night she had played piano at a hotel event. That was supposed to be it. One night, one moment, and then back to her normal life. But clearly that was not going to happen. She got dressed in her work uniform. She was scheduled to clean at the hotel today. She had to go to work. She had bills to pay. Life did not stop just because something strange happened. But when she arrived at the hotel, everything was different. The moment she walked through the employee entrance, people started staring. Other staff members she had worked with for years were looking at her differently, whispering, pointing, "Maria!" Someone called out. It was Carlos, one of the maintenance workers. I saw the video. You were amazing. I had no idea you could play like that. More people gathered around. Everyone wanted to talk to her. Everyone had questions. Maria felt overwhelmed. She tried to smile and be polite, but she felt like the walls were closing in. Jessica, the event coordinator, came running over. Maria, oh my God, Maria. Have you seen the video? Have you seen how many people are watching it? This is incredible. The hotel manager wants to talk to you. There are reporters calling. People want to interview you. I don't want to be interviewed, Maria said. I just want to work, please. But Jessica was not listening. She was too excited. This is huge. This could be so good for the hotel. We could have you play more events. We could... No, Maria said firmly. No, I'm sorry. I can't. I need to go clean rooms now. She walked away before Jessica could say anything else. She went to get her cleaning cart. But even as she worked, going from room to room, she could not stop thinking about what Jennifer, the reporter, had said. 2 million views. 2 million people watching her. Watching that private moment when she had let everything pour out. She felt exposed. Naked. Like everyone could see inside her now. See all the things she had kept hidden for so long. It was terrifying. But there was another feeling too. Something smaller. Something she was almost afraid to admit. A tiny part of her felt glad. Glad that people had seen. Glad that people knew she could play. Glad that Lin Mei Ling was not completely forgotten after all. During her lunch break, Maria went to the hotel's business center. There were computers there that guests could use. She had never used them before. She did not know much about computers. But she needed to see. She needed to know what everyone was talking about. A young hotel guest helped her. He showed her how to search on YouTube. He typed in Mystery Pianist Hotel and dozens of videos came up. All of them were different versions of the same thing. Her performance from last night, he clicked on one, and there she was. On the screen, sitting at the piano, looking small and nervous and old. The video showed her starting with the simple Chopin. Then it showed the moment everything changed. The moment she started playing Rachmaninoff, Maria watched herself play. She saw her own hands flying over the keys. She saw her face, eyes closed, tears on her cheeks. She saw the crowd around her, frozen, watching. Some of them crying. She saw what they saw, and for the first time she understood why they reacted the way they did. It was not just the technical skill. It was not just the difficulty of the piece. It was the emotion, raw and real and impossible to ignore. You could see it. You could feel it. Even through a phone video on a computer screen, you could feel it. Wow, the young guest said. Is that really you? That's insane. You're incredible. Maria did not know what to say. She just nodded and thanked him. She went back to work, but she could not focus. Her mind was spinning. The video was real. This was really happening. She could not pretend it was not. When her shift ended, she went home. She turned her phone back on. There were 23 missed calls, 15 voicemails, dozens of text messages from numbers she did not know. She deleted them all without listening or reading. She did not want to deal with it. But there was one text message from a number she recognized. Robert Chen, the professor from Juilliard, the man who had known about her past. The message said, Maria, I hope you're okay. I know today must be overwhelming. Please call me when you can. I want to help. This is a good thing, I promise. Don't be afraid. Maria stared at the message for a long time. Then she called the number. Robert answered on the first ring. Maria, thank goodness. I've been worried about you. I don't know what to do, Maria said. Her voice broke. This is too much. I don't want this attention. I just want to disappear. I know, Robert said gently. I know this is scary. But Maria, this is also an opportunity, a chance to come back, to be who you were meant to be. I'm 67 years old, Maria said. I'm too old. It's too late. It's never too late, Robert said. Look, I know this is all happening very fast, but I want you to come to New York. Come to Juilliard. Let me help you prepare. Let's see what's possible. I can't afford to go to New York, Maria said. I can't afford anything. I'm a cleaning lady. I barely pay my rent. I'll pay for everything, Robert said. The flight, the hotel, everything. Consider it an investment. I believe in you, Maria. I believe in what you can do. Why? Maria asked. Why do you care so much? Robert was quiet for a moment. Then he said, because Professor Wang cared. Because you represent something important. You represent all the talent that was lost during those dark years in China. All the dreams that were destroyed. And you're still here, still alive, still able to play like that. Your story needs to be told. Your music needs to be heard. Not just in a hotel lobby by accident, but everywhere. On stages, in concert halls. You deserve that, Maria closed her eyes. She wanted to say no. She wanted to hang up and hide and pretend none of this happened. But she thought about Professor Wang, about how he had kept her photo, about how he had never forgotten her. Okay, she heard herself say. Okay, I'll come. Over the next 2 weeks, everything moved very fast. Too fast, Robert arranged everything. He bought her plane ticket. He booked her a room near Juilliard. He even arranged for someone to cover her shifts at the hotel so she would not lose her job. Maria told her children she was going to New York for a week. They were confused. Their mother never traveled. Their mother never did anything unexpected. But they were also excited, especially when they found out why. They had seen the video too. Everyone had seen the video. Mom, her daughter Lisa said on the phone, I had no idea you could play piano like that. Why didn't you ever tell us? How could Maria explain? How could she make them understand? It was a different life, she said. A long time ago, before you were born, before I came to America. Will you teach me the story? Lisa asked. Someday? Someday, Maria promised. The flight to New York was Maria's first time on a plane in over 20 years. She was nervous. Everything felt too big, too much. But Robert met her at the airport. He was warm and kind and made her feel safe. He took her to Juilliard, the famous Juilliard school that she had only heard about, never seen. It was beautiful, full of young people with instruments and passion and dreams. She felt out of place, old, like she did not belong. But Robert took her to a practice room, a small room with a piano, a good piano. He closed the door and said, Play something, anything, let me hear you. Maria sat at the piano. Her hands were shaking again, but she started to play, the Rachmaninoff, the same piece from the hotel, and as she played, something happened. The fear melted away. The doubt melted away. There was only the music. When she finished, Robert was smiling. You still have it, he said. Everything. It's all still there. They spent the next week working together. Robert helped her remember, helped her polish, helped her prepare. Not just the Rachmaninoff, but other pieces too. Mozart, Beethoven, Chopin. Her fingers hurt at first. She was not used to playing so much. But they got stronger. They remembered. Robert also arranged for her to be interviewed. Just one interview, with a major magazine. They wanted to tell her story. Maria was scared, but Robert convinced her. "People need to hear this," he said. "Your story matters." The interview took place in one of Juilliard's beautiful rooms. The journalist was a woman in her 40s named Sarah. She was kind, patient. She asked questions gently. Maria told her everything. About Shanghai. About the Cultural Revolution. About the piano being destroyed. About her father. About the years in the countryside. About coming to America. About becoming invisible. Sarah had tears in her eyes when Maria finished. "That's incredible," she said. "And now? What happens now?" "I don't know," Maria said honestly. "I'm still trying to understand. Robert thinks I should perform. Really perform. But I'm scared." "What are you scared of?" Sarah asked. Maria thought about it. "I'm scared I'm not good enough anymore. I'm scared people will be disappointed. I'm scared I'll fail." "Or maybe you're scared you'll succeed," Sarah said quietly. "Maybe that's even scarier." Maria realized she was right. Failure was familiar. She knew how to handle failure. But success? Being seen? Being recognized? That was terrifying. That meant she could not hide anymore. The article came out 3 days later. It was published online and in print. The headline read, "The Lost Piano Prodigy, How the Cultural Revolution Stole a Genius and America Never Knew." The article told Maria's whole story. It was beautiful and sad and powerful. Within hours it went viral, even more viral than the video. News outlets around the world picked it up. CNN, BBC, the New York Times. Everyone wanted to talk about Maria Chen, the cleaning lady who was really Lin Mei Ling, the lost prodigy from China. Robert called her. "Maria, you need to see this. The response is incredible. People are moved. They're inspired. And guess what? Carnegie Hall wants you to perform. They're offering you a slot 6 months from now. A full concert. Maria, do you understand what that means? Carnegie Hall, one of the most prestigious venues in the world." Maria could not speak. Carnegie Hall, the place where the greatest musicians in history had performed. They wanted her? Maria Chen, the 67-year-old cleaning lady? "I can't," she whispered. "I can't do that." "Yes, you can," Robert said firmly. "We have 6 months to prepare. I'll help you. We'll work together. You can do this. I know you can." Maria sat in her hotel room in New York. She looked out the window at the city. So many lights, so many people, so many possibilities. She thought about that night in the hotel lobby, how scared she had been, how she had almost walked away. But she had not walked away. She had sat down at that piano. She had played, and everything changed. Maybe that was what courage was, not the absence of fear, but doing the thing anyway. Even when you were terrified, even when it seemed impossible. She picked up her phone. She called Robert back. "Okay," she said. "Okay, I'll do it. I'll perform at Carnegie Hall." She could hear the smile in his voice. "That's my girl. That's Lin Mei Ling. She's back, and maybe she was. Maybe after 50 years of hiding, after 50 years of being invisible, Lin Mei Ling was finally coming home." 6 months. That was all the time Maria had to prepare for the most important performance of her life. The performance that should have happened 50 years ago, but was stolen from her by history. The performance that would finally answer the question, could Lin Mei Ling still be the pianist she was meant to be? Those 6 months were the hardest and most beautiful months of Maria's life since she was a young girl in Shanghai. Robert arranged for her to stay in New York. He found her a small apartment near Juilliard. He gave her access to practice rooms anytime she needed. He worked with her every single day. At first, it was painful. Not just emotionally, but physically. Her hands hurt. Her back hurt. Her fingers were stiff and slow. Decades of cleaning work had left their mark. She was not 14 anymore. She was not even 40. She was 67, and her body reminded her of that fact every single day. "We need to rebuild your strength," Robert told her. "Not just your technique, but your stamina. Playing a full concert is physically demanding. We need to prepare your body as much as your mind." So Maria started doing exercises, hand exercises, stretches. She saw a physical therapist who specialized in musicians. The therapist was a kind woman named Dr. Martinez who understood what Maria's hands had been through. "You have arthritis," Dr. Martinez said. "It's not severe, but it's there. We can manage it. We can work with it. You'll need to warm up carefully before playing. You'll need to ice your hands after. You'll need to listen to your body." Maria listened. She did everything they told her to do. She practiced for hours every day. At first, she could only manage 30 minutes before the pain became too much. But slowly, gradually, she built up her endurance. After a month, she could practice for an hour. After 2 months, 2 hours. After 3 months, she could practice for 3 or 4 hours with breaks. Her fingers started to remember more and more. The pieces she had learned as a girl came back to her. The muscle memory was still there, buried deep. It just needed to be awakened, like bringing a garden back to life after a long winter. The roots were still alive, just sleeping. Robert worked with her on interpretation. "You have the technique," he told her. "You always had that. But now you have something else. Something more important. You have life experience. You have depth. You have survived things that most people cannot imagine. Let that inform your playing. Let your story be part of the music." Maria did not always understand what he meant. How could her suffering make the music better? But when she played, when she stopped thinking and just felt, she began to understand. The music was not separate from her life. The music was her life. Every note carried her story. Every phrase held her pain and her hope. The word spread about her upcoming performance. The article about her had touched people around the world. Survivors of the Cultural Revolution reached out to her. Other Chinese immigrants who had lost their dreams. People who understood what it meant to have your life interrupted by history. She received letters. Hundreds of them. They came from everywhere. From China. From America. From Europe. People wrote to tell her their own stories. People wrote to say thank you. Thank you for not giving up. Thank you for proving that it was never too late. One letter came from an old woman in Beijing. She wrote in beautiful Chinese characters. She said she had been a violinist before the Cultural Revolution. She said she had also been forced to give up music, but she had never played again. She said seeing Maria's story gave her hope. She said maybe she would try to play again, even if it was just for herself. Even if no one else heard, maybe it was not too late for her either. Maria cried when she read that letter. She realized her performance was not just about her anymore. It was about everyone who had been silenced. Everyone who had been told they were not good enough. Everyone who had been forced to hide who they really were. That made the pressure even greater. But it also made it matter more. As the months passed, Maria's playing improved dramatically. Robert was amazed. "You're better than you were," he told her one day. "When you were young, you had talent and technique. Now you have artistry. Now you have soul." But Maria still struggled with doubt. Late at night, alone in her apartment, she would lie awake and wonder, what if she failed? What if she froze on stage? What if her hands gave out? What if people were disappointed? What if she was not as good as everyone remembered? She called her children often during those months. Lisa came to visit twice. Her son Michael came once. They watched her practice. They listened to her story. They began to understand their mother in a way they never had before. "Why didn't you tell us?" Lisa asked. "Why did you keep this secret for so long?" "Because I was ashamed," Maria said honestly. "I felt like a failure. I was supposed to be something great. Instead, I was just a cleaning lady. I thought you would be disappointed in me." "Mom," Michael said, "we could never be disappointed in you. You survived. You raised us. You gave us good lives. That's not failure. That's heroism." Maria had never thought of it that way. She had always seen her life as a series of losses. But maybe her children were right. Maybe survival was its own kind of victory. Maybe there were different ways to be strong. 2 months before the concert, a famous designer contacted Robert. Her name was Sophia Zhang. She was Chinese-American and had built a fashion empire. She had read Maria's story and been deeply moved. "I want to design something for her to wear," Sophia said. "For the concert. Something beautiful. Something that honors where she came from and where she is now." Maria met Sophia in her studio in Manhattan. It was full of light and fabric and creativity. Sophia was a small, elegant woman in her 50s. She looked at Maria with kind eyes. "Tell me what you want to feel when you walk on that stage," Sophia said. Maria thought about it. "I want to feel worthy," she said quietly. "I want to feel like I belong there. Like I'm not pretending. You're not pretending, Sophia said firmly. You are exactly where you belong. Now let's create something that reflects that. They spent hours together. Sophia measured and sketched and draped fabric. She asked Maria about her memories of China, about what colors meant to her, about what made her feel strong. The dress Sophia created was stunning. It was deep midnight blue, the color of the Shanghai sky Maria remembered from her childhood. It had delicate embroidery on the sleeves that looked like piano keys flowing into waves. It was elegant but not too fancy, powerful but not pretentious. When Maria tried it on, she looked in the mirror and barely recognized herself. She looked like an artist. She looked like someone who belonged on a stage. Perfect, Sophia said, smiling. This is you. The real you. As the concert date approached, the excitement built. Tickets sold out within hours of going on sale. Carnegie Hall was not a small venue. It held almost 3,000 people. 3,000 seats all filled with people coming to hear Maria Chen play. The media attention intensified. News crews wanted to interview her. Talk shows wanted her to appear. But Robert protected her. She needs to focus, he told everyone. She needs to prepare. After the concert, she can do interviews. But not before. 1 week before the concert, Maria received an unexpected visitor. She was practicing at Juilliard when Robert came to the practice room with someone else. An old man, very thin, with white hair and a cane. He looked to be in his 80s, Maria, Robert said gently. This is Chen Huang. He was also a student of Professor Wang. He came from Beijing to see you. The old man looked at Maria with tears in his eyes. He spoke in Mandarin. His voice was weak but clear. Little Mei Mei, he said. I remember you. I was older than you. I studied with Professor Wang in the early 1960s. I remember when you auditioned. I was there. I heard you play. Maria's hands flew to her mouth. Someone who had been there. Someone who remembered. Someone who had heard her play when she was 14 years old. You were extraordinary, Chen Huang continued. We all knew it. We all talked about how you would become famous. How you would make China proud. And then you disappeared. We grieved for you. We thought you were gone forever. He stepped closer and took her rough, worn hands in his frail ones. But you are here. You survived. And you are still playing. This is a miracle. Professor Wang would be so happy, so proud. I came to tell you this. I came to tell you that we never forgot you. That you mattered. That you still matter. Maria could not speak. She just held this old man's hands and cried. They cried together. Two survivors of a terrible time. Two people who had lost so much but were still here, still alive, still remembering. Will you come to the concert? Maria asked when she could finally speak. Nothing could keep me away, Chen Huang said. I have waited 50 years to hear you play again. The night before the concert, Maria could not sleep. She lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. Tomorrow. Tomorrow she would walk onto the stage at Carnegie Hall. Tomorrow she would face 3,000 people. Tomorrow she would finally do what she was supposed to do 50 years ago. She was terrified, but she was also ready. She thought about everyone who would be there. Robert would be there. Her children would be there, sitting in the front row. Chen Huang would be there. Hundreds of people who had read her story and been moved by it would be there. People who saw themselves in her. People who had also survived. They took a car to Carnegie Hall. When they arrived, there was a crowd outside. People with cameras. People who wanted to see her. Some of them started clapping when she got out of the car. Maria waved shyly and quickly went inside. Backstage was busy. People rushing around. Other performers, staff, everyone had a job to do. Robert was there, calm and steady. You're going to be wonderful, he told her. Just play from your heart. That's all you need to do. Maria went to a private room to warm up. She played scales. She played through sections of the pieces she would perform. Her hands felt good, strong, ready. The nervousness was still there, but underneath it was something else. Confidence, not arrogance, not certainty that she would be perfect, but confidence that she belonged here, that she had earned this moment. At 7:30, they told her it was time. The hall was full. Everyone was in their seats. They were waiting for her. Maria stood in the wings just off stage. She could see the piano. She could see the lights. She could hear the murmur of 3,000 people talking, waiting, wondering. Robert stood beside her. This is your moment, he said quietly. Everything you've been through. Everything you've survived. It all led to this. Go out there and show them who you are. Show them what they tried to destroy but couldn't. Show them that Lin Mei Ling is still here. Maria took a deep breath. She closed her eyes for just a second. She thought about the 14-year-old girl in Shanghai who had played so fearlessly. She thought about Professor Wang who had believed in her. She thought about her father who had been so proud. She thought about all the years of silence, all the years of hiding, all the years of pretending, and she thought about that night in the hotel lobby, the night she had stopped pretending, the night she had let the music out, the night everything changed. She opened her eyes. She was ready. The stage manager nodded to her. The lights in the hall dimmed. The crowd went quiet. And then Maria walked onto the stage. The applause was immediate and thunderous. 3,000 people standing, clapping, welcoming her. Maria walked to the center of the stage and bowed. She looked out at the audience. She could not see individual faces because of the lights, but she could feel them. She could feel their energy, their support, their hope. In the front row, she could just make out her children. Lisa was already crying. Michael was smiling so big. Next to them was Chen Huang, the old man who had traveled from Beijing. And throughout the hall were hundreds of other people. People with their own stories, their own losses, their own dreams. Maria walked to the piano and sat down. She adjusted the bench. She placed her hands on the keys. And for just a moment, she was not in Carnegie Hall. She was in Shanghai. She was 14 years old. She was playing her audition for the conservatory. She was playing for Professor Wang. She was playing for her father and mother. She was playing for the girl she used to be. She began with Mozart, Piano Sonata No. 11. It was the first piece Professor Wang had ever taught her. It started gently, sweetly, like a memory of better times. Her fingers moved across the keys with grace and precision. The notes were clean and clear and full of light. The audience listened in complete silence. You could have heard a pin drop. 3,000 people and not one sound except the piano. Maria played through the sonata, feeling the music flow through her. It was not difficult technically. She had played much harder pieces, but it was beautiful, and it was meaningful. It was a connection to her past, to her teacher, to the girl she had been. When the sonata ended, there was a brief pause and then applause. But it was not just polite applause. It was genuine, warm, appreciative. Next, she played Chopin, the same nocturne she had started with at the hotel. But this time it was different. This time she was not scared. This time she let herself fully feel every note. The sadness, the longing, the beauty of something lost but not forgotten. People in the audience were wiping their eyes. Then came Beethoven, powerful and dramatic. Then more Chopin, delicate and emotional. Each piece told a part of her story. Each piece revealed something about who she was. And then finally it was time for the Rachmaninoff. Piano Concerto No. 2, the piece she had played for her audition 50 years ago. The piece she had played at the hotel. The piece that had changed everything. There would be no orchestra tonight. Just Maria and the piano. Just the piano reduction of the concerto. But that was enough. That was all she needed. She paused before beginning. She took a breath. And then she started. The opening notes were soft, questioning, uncertain, like someone waking up after a long sleep. Then the music began to build. Slowly at first, then faster, stronger, more urgent, more demanding. Maria's hands flew across the keys. The muscle memory was complete now. She did not have to think about what came next. Her hands knew. Her heart knew. She was not playing the notes anymore. She was living them. She was breathing them. The music swelled and crashed like ocean waves. It was angry and sad and beautiful and desperate all at once. It was everything she had felt for 50 years. All the grief, all the loss, all the dreams that had been destroyed, but also all the strength, all the survival, all the refusal to completely disappear. She played the middle section with such tenderness it made hearts ache. She played the final section with such power it made hearts race. Every note was perfect, not because of technical perfection but because of emotional truth. And then came the ending, the massive, crashing, triumphant ending. Maria played with everything she had, all her strength, all her passion, all her life force. The music filled Carnegie Hall from floor to ceiling. It reached every person in every seat. It connected them all in this one shared moment of beauty and pain and hope. The final chords rang out. Powerful. Absolute. Final. And then, silence. Complete, total silence. Maria sat at the piano, her hands still on the keys, her chest heaving, her face wet with tears. For a moment, nothing happened. The silence stretched. And then, from somewhere in the audience, someone stood up and began to clap. Then another person stood. Then another. Then everyone. All 3,000 people on their feet, applauding, some crying, some shouting. The sound was deafening. Maria stood and bowed. The applause got even louder. She bowed again. It continued. People were not stopping. They did not want to stop. She looked out at the crowd, at all these people who had come to hear her, who had believed in her, who had given her this chance. And she realized something profound. She had spent 50 years thinking she had lost everything. But she had not lost everything. She had lost time. She had lost opportunities. But she had not lost herself. The music had always been there. The artist had always been there. Just waiting, just surviving, just hoping. And now she was here, on the stage at Carnegie Hall at 67 years old. After everything, after all the pain and loss and struggle, she was here. She was playing. She was seen. She was real. She bowed one more time. The applause continued for almost 10 minutes. It was the longest standing ovation Carnegie Hall had seen in years. Maria finally left the stage, but the applause did not stop. They called her back. She came back and bowed again. They still did not stop. She came back twice more. Finally, exhausted and overwhelmed and happier than she had been in 50 years, she left the stage for the last time. Backstage, people surrounded her. Robert was there, crying. "You did it," he said. "You were magnificent." Her children rushed to her. They held her and cried and told her how proud they were. Chen Huang was there too, the old man from Beijing. He could barely speak. He just held her hands and nodded, tears streaming down his face. Later that night, after all the congratulations and hugs and photos, Maria went back to her apartment. She was exhausted. Her hands hurt. Her back hurt. But her heart felt lighter than it had in decades. She looked at herself in the mirror. Same face, same gray hair, same wrinkles, but different eyes. Eyes that were no longer hiding. Eyes that had nothing left to prove. Eyes that had finally come home. She had done it. Against all odds. Against everything that history had thrown at her. Against age and time and doubt. She had done it. She had reclaimed herself. She had shown the world that it was never too late. That nothing could kill the music inside someone who truly loved it. That survival itself was a kind of triumph. The next day, reviews came out. They were extraordinary. The New York Times called her performance transcendent. Other papers called it miraculous and deeply moving, unforgettable. People wrote that it was not just a concert. It was a testament to the human spirit. A reminder that art survives. That dreams survive. That people survive. More opportunities came. Other concerts. Recording offers. Interviews. Maria did not say yes to everything. She was 67. She was still learning how to be this person. This public person. This artist. But she said yes to some things, carefully, thoughtfully. She performed at several more venues over the next year. Each time she played for the people who needed to hear it. The survivors, the dreamers, the people who had been told they were not good enough. She played to tell them they were wrong. You are good enough. It is not too late. You are still here. Your story is not over. Maria kept her small apartment in Los Angeles. She still thought of it as home. But she also spent time in New York. She started teaching. Just a few students.